So, good evening, everybody. A very warm welcome to all of you during the puja days, pre-Dussehra days, Navratri. So, it's a holiday season actually for the Indians. So, that's why, the thin attendance. But I'm sure that online we have more people listening to our program. So, first of all, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to François Schick.
Wonderful.
I hope I have pronounced it correctly.
Perfectly.
Yeah. From France. For more than 15 years, François has been meditating, dedicating his life to the Dharma and particularly to the method of shamatha or calm abiding. Having received a thorough education in the Gelug tradition and having done numerous solitary retreats, including 6 months in the Alps, under the personal guidance of Alan Wallace. You're really lucky. He is currently teaching at Kalachakra Center in France. He has also been working on a book on shamatha. François, we look forward to going through your book. When do you think it'll be out?
That's a good question.
Okay.
As soon as possible.
Okay. So today, François will be giving us a teaching on the three wisdoms towards effortless experience based on Pabongkha Rinpoche's How to Meditate on the Lam Rim. I welcome you once again and thank you for accepting to come to our
Thank you
center.
for hosting me. That's very appreciated.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nico.
May I now request you to teach?
Yes?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good. All right. So, good evening, everyone. We're going to start with a small meditation on the breath. And it's nice to remind ourselves what is breathing, basically. So I'll start with a little anatomy class, because it's important to know how do we breathe. So to make it simple, there's two cavities in our trunk. There's the abdominal cavity and the thoracic cavity. The two are separated by a dome, that's diaphragm. Beneath, you have the stomach, you have the intestine, the liver, and above, you have the heart and you have the lungs. So basically, breathing, it's a process that can be made possible by using several muscles. You could open the intercostal internal and external muscle, and you would breathe like that. You expand the thoracic cavity. If you expand the thoracic cavity, the pressure inside decreases and you suck air. Simple physics. Or you could lower the dome, increasing the thoracic cavity and sucking air in. So there's two chains of muscle, either the diaphragm or the intercostal muscle. Even though it's not really formulated like in the ancient classic text, I think science shows that breathing with the diaphragm is much more relaxing than breathing with the upper torso. So the way to do that, and I think that's something that we might not be aware of, is that the breathing process is mostly active during breathing in. So basically you have the dome of the diaphragm, and by sucking air in your lungs, the diaphragm is contracting. So the muscular activity is mostly taking place while you're breathing. And while you breathe out, you just relax the diaphragm and the air goes out of your lungs. You don't have to push further from that, because if you do that, then you're going to start to hyperventilate. And I actually found many people doing breathing meditation in which they hyperventilate. And that brings many problems because you deplete your body of CO2 and you start to have headache. And it's kind of strange because you breathe a lot, but you start to have headache as if you miss air. And there's some certain biological process that can explain that. So what we're going to do now is just to pay attention to the diaphragm. that it's contracting while we breathe in, and it's just taking its place back when we breathe out. Very easy. And while the diaphragm is contracting, it pushes the abdominal cavity, and you have the impression that your belly is inflating. Well, it's not really inflating, it's your internal organ that gets pushed by the diaphragm when it contracts. Try to feel that. And now, before we start to exchange together, let's establish our intention for this session. And the best way to do that is what we say, we taking refuge, but basically is that we remind ourselves that in life there's many problems. In samsara, there's many problems. And for taking refuge, there must be the observation of a certain risk, the confidence that there is a safety somewhere. And one way to take refuge is to take refuge in our future accomplishment, in the future accomplishment of our own potential. And I think that's one of the purest form of going for refuge. We can take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, external, but it's also to take refuge in the accomplishment of our future potential. That's why we are dedicating some of the time tonight, while there was many opportunities to go to parties tonight, apparently in Delhi, and restaurants. And we do that for ourselves, and we do that for others also, with the confidence that by going a step toward the fulfillment of our potential, we may be of help to others, and the world nowadays really need it. So we can embrace this altruistic intention also. That the few moments we're going to sit, listen, reflect, that's going to be not only for our sake, but for a bit more peace in this world. All right. So when I teach, normally I don't give a lot of commentaries of classic texts, but I don't know why, maybe because I'm very impressed to be in India. I have to be more into the profound text to pretend I'm learned. So that's what I did. And actually that's a text that for practice is very, very helpful. I'm not going to read everything because it's a long text, but just part of it, just for starting our discussion. And you will see how it goes. So it was written by Pabongkha Rinpoche, who's very, very important yogi in the Gelug tradition, who lived in the 20th century, spent years in solitude, giving extensive teaching on the Lam Rim, was renowned for his extraordinary experience realization. And he was really extremely gifted in teaching and really realized, and you don't find this kind of advice often, what I'm going to read now. It's a small text that's called Meditating on the Stage of the Path, how to meditate on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And anyway, here is a part of it. When we are proud of our wide learning, our efforts at teaching and studying, and we are even sure that we could explain 100 scriptures, though our minds have not improved the least bit spiritually. He's quite strong, eh? It is because we lack the analytical meditation that combines understanding with experience. A mere semblance of listening, study, and understanding can generate both strong faith and listening wisdom about the topic of leisure and fortune, impermanence, aversion, and so forth, the topic that we normally see in the Lam Rim, for example. But they have not arisen through analytical meditation. Such wisdom is nothing more than right judgment, so eventually it fades away. You run a risk by failing to generate soon after this wisdom, the genuine experience that comes from reflection. Many persons become insensitive to Dharma when they allow the former awareness to fade away before they can generate the later. Once you overcome with insensitivity to Dharma, your mind stream becomes ruined and you are incapable of being tamed, even by the Lam Rim. So apply yourself to the profound method for avoiding insensitivity to Dharma. What does it mean, insensitivity to Dharma? Tell me, what is it?
Lack of receptivity.
Lack of receptivity. So how does that express in your experience?
Which means you're not open to experience. You're not open to your practice.
Yes, you're not open. Do you hear what's online? Okay, so maybe I have to...
Is it okay? Yeah. So not open to experience and having some doubts about the
Yeah.
stuff that you're studying and practicing.
Yes.
You're not sure.
You're not sure, so you have many doubts.
Yes.
Okay. Another way it can be expressed, this insensitivity for the Dharma. Yeah.
Maybe egoism and I may be wrong. Maybe it's egoism and like you want to preach before you want to learn.
Okay. So you're very good at teaching, but you're very not. You haven't realized things for yourself.
Yeah. You are not compassionate within. You're not gratified within yourself, and you think you know more than you know.
Okay. So kind of arrogance also.
Yeah.
Okay. Another way. Oh, sorry. Do you hear me online? Yes?
I think it's like, you know the words, but you don't put in practice,
You know the words.
Yeah. You know all the theory part, but you don't put in practice,
Okay.
Yeah.
And this works for Buddhism, but this can work for many spiritual traditions, basically. All work the same. I think the three wisdom
Yeah.
can be for everything that we want to implement ourselves in our experience. So what are the other external signs that we become insensitive to Dharma? Online, you can also interact if you want. Huh? Greed. Okay, greed. What else? You've been listening to many teaching, attended many class. You've heard many times emptiness means emptiness of true existence. And you say, oh, come on, I've heard it. But it doesn't sink, it doesn't become your experience. So what is the external expression of that?
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion, okay.
Boredom.
Boredom can be
Envy, yeah.
envy. And insensitivity. If you would take insensitivity for like antibiotics, you become insensitive to antibiotics. How would that express?
Lack of response.
Yes. Okay, so lack of response. You hear the teaching, but it doesn't trigger so much beyond the intellectual scope. And I'm not saying intellectual scope is not important. It's crucial, but how do we go beyond? Because when we become insensitive to Dharma, one way is that we lose joy also. And there's no more hope. Okay, so we have a technical issue. And now it's better? Yes? Okay. So I don't know exactly what Pabongkha Rinpoche had in mind when he was saying you become insensitive to the Dharma, but I know very well the kind of function of the mind that you get when you start to lose hope in the Dharma. And I'm not sure this is something that is often taught. What's happening when in your practice you think it doesn't move so much? You hear the teaching many times, but there's something that's not changing so much. Well, some signs also is that you become very tired about the Dharma. You don't have effortless mind. So if the mind is not effortless, is putting a lot of exertion, and exertion makes the mind very tired. You think you don't move so much, you don't change so much. So Pabongkha Rinpoche says, well, this is at his time probably something that people would encounter from time to time, become insensitive to the Dharma. Going from one teaching to another again and again, and even feeling a bit of aversion to the text. Because you've heard many times the teaching, and it doesn't seem that it changes so much. So often when you see the classic text, a skillful teacher would take the problem that people would face at his time and try to change it, try to give an answer to that. And from one time to another, the question, the doubt, and the difficulty that practitioner would face would be different. At the time of Tsongkhapa, it was not necessarily the same as the time of Buddha Shakyamuni, and at the time nowadays, it may not be the same. So if I'm thinking now, what are some of the important causes that prevents us from really having effortless, joyful experience of the Dharma, what would it be? And I have a little experience in guiding retreat and guiding class, and I have a lot of feedback with people. So I'm collecting samples from what they say, and few things came to my mind, and it also come from my own struggles. So to this insensitivity of the Dharma, which is something I really hold as a precious teaching because I was an actor before. And I received a very important teaching from one of my teachers, and she told me, never go on stage and say something you don't mean. Well, it's a big commitment for an actor, because sometimes you have to fake it until you make it. And it's the same with meditation. Sometimes you have to fake it, repeat the words to the point where you start to have the experience, the meaning. But she was telling me, don't go on stage if you don't feel you want to talk, and if it's not coming from a place of honesty. And that's something that is in my mind for many years now. And it's very easy to say, may all beings be happy, possess happiness and the cause of happiness, but it can be also just words. How do we make possible to have strong experience behind the words? Strong meaning rather than just having the words. So I've identified two things. You'll tell me what you think of it. That may be causes that we are facing. In Europe, I don't know in India if that's the case. You will tell me if I'm wrong. That can be causes of us becoming insensitive to the Dharma. The first is when our aspiration start to slow down. Our aspiration is very much connected to hope. Aspiration is a mental factor. It's a function of the mind that observes something we want to get, or we want to embrace, or we want to have. It's a mental drive. And often when we start to hear about spirituality, we have a lot of hope because we don't have a lot of experience. We have a lot of hope. Some of them are very unrealistic, but we have a lot of hope. Some of the hope are a kind of projection that's never going to happen, but there's also, I believe, some hope that's very like a pure aspiration. And when we practice for a while, we hear many teachings and years are passing, then we start to be very realistic about the journey. We start to know exactly what it is to become a Buddha, or what it is to become liberated, or what it is to tame the mind. But slowly, I've noticed that this aspiration is start to slow down because the journey is so far, it's so big, and I'm so little, and my life is going so crazy that my aspiration is starting to shut down. And if the aspiration is shutting down, what comes after aspiration? Joyous effort. So often hope is considered something problematic in Buddhism because you have hope and fear in the 8 worldly concerns. Hope and fear. It's afflictive. And I like to also take our Western words and try to blend them with Buddhist teaching because I think hope is a very important function of the mind for us. having hope. And what does it mean, having hope? What is it to have hope? So it's considered something suitable as to be realized. It's considered something that can be realized or done. It's a function of the mind that takes something in the future and say, this is possible. This is possible. So when we learn about shamatha, and I'm leading quite some retreat on shamatha, the newcomers, you know, in France we have this word, la chance des débutants, the luck of the beginners. Is there something like that in the luck of the beginners? Beginner's luck. So you're new at something, but somehow it works. And one of the reasons, I think, is because you have a lot of hope. Because you've never been meditating, you've never touched a book on self-development, but you hear these stories of yogi and you mentally say, wow, how would that be if I was to just sit and be still, focus on the breath or mental image for 1 hour? What would that be? And when we're beginners, we do that a lot. It's natural almost. And it fuels a kind of joy that we want to do that, and we do meditate. But after a while, you start to know that meditation is a bit more hard than that. It's a bit more tricky. And now you start to have experience in the past. And you start to judge your spiritual journey on the basis of what happened. No, I don't have much hope because I've done this retreat many times. It didn't go so well. So I'm not having hope. I'm not going to imagine myself because I know very well that I've done multiple retreats. I've meditated many times. I've listened to these many teachings. It doesn't change. And then the function of the mind of aspiration is starting to slow down. And when it does, then you don't have hope anymore. And if there's no more hope, then there's no more joyous effort. Hope is slowly decreasing. And I think it's a very important function of the mind, hope. Aspiration is extremely important. Aspiration is present in the mind of refuge, the mind of renunciation, in bodhicitta, in compassion, in love. These are all types of aspiration. You wish all beings to be happy. You wish yourself to be free from suffering. You wish yourself to be out of samsara. You wish yourself to become a Buddha. All the most important mind, most of them are aspiration. And I think in the West, I don't know if it's like that in India, it's very hard for us to develop this mind because it's a mind that comes from kindness toward yourself. It's a mind that says, I'm able to do that. I don't know when, I'm not going to say when, but I'm starting to imagine what would it be if I had that. And I've noticed in the West, people are not very keen in doing that. It's very hard for them to spend some time imagining what would that be if I was more compassionate, more loving, more caring. It's a simple practice, huh? And it's the basis of self-love, self-compassion, self-goodwill, the possibility of us watching our future, watching the unraveling of our own potential in the future. How would that be if? Sometimes the texts say love is the aspiration that people would be happy, but it's also how wonderful it would be if they would be happy. But in the meditation on love and compassion, we forget that we have to imagine those being more happy. It's one of the steps, actually. You have to imagine be happy. Because if you say, oh, may all beings be happy, but you really think it's not possible, then there's the step of hope and aspiration that cannot take place. There cannot be aspiration and hope if there's no strong impression that it's possible. And I've noticed that this mind is not very well trained for us in the West, because it feels narcissistic, it feels that I'm imagining something from the future, it's delusional. But I'm practicing shamatha for many years, and the first trigger, the first power for you to sit on a cushion and meditate, what is it? Aspiration, joyous effort. And how is it generated? How is it generated? By understanding the quality that you get when you train your mind. So you have a whole list of quality, but if you just go over this quality and say, oh, this is very nice for those who can dedicate their life and stay in a cave, but I cannot. This is not the practice itself. The practice itself is to go over this quality and really believe it's possible. And it's hard when you have a lot of experience that tells you otherwise. Because sometimes you want to do that and you say, yeah, but François, come on, you're telling yourself stories, you know? You've started meditation many times. How many times you stopped? You're not going to start to imagine yourself being more at peace. You cannot. And that's the expression of a lack of enthusiasm or self-deprecation, which in the West we're very, very good at. And I've noticed that the people who have less self-confidence are those who can focus the less, because this internal machine of joyous effort, aspiration, conviction in our quality is just shutting down. So for meditation, that's the first start. That's the first start of putting ourselves into going in the direction of effortless. Because joyous effort, we'll come to that. Joyous effort is different from exertion. Exertion is that you put a little force. It's not easy. But joyous effort becomes effortless. It's joyful. It's not painful. And we'll come to shamatha, because shamatha is how you train your mind to be effortless. Yes?
Would you say that in ordinary minds, aspiring to be happy actually brings a lot of fear, and you get addicted to your own suffering because there is a lot of security there. You know, the suffering will last, whereas happiness won't last forever.
Yeah.
So do you think that is how the ordinary mind works?
Yeah, I think there's many resistance for us to practice this. One resistance is self-identification also. You identify with your failure. You identify with your anger. I cannot be at peace because I'm just an angry person. I cannot tame my mind. That's why this practice of imagining ourselves how we would like to become is one way to shake the solidity in which we hold ourselves. The same for someone. You do a meditation on love and compassion for someone you have problem with. At first you say, no, I cannot imagine this person becoming nice and happy. It's just nasty. It's just not how it's going to happen. And you find your mind being caught in that self-identification that the other one cannot change. But once you practice, you start to desolidify the way you perceive that person to be. And I think that's what we have to do to ourselves, because we can repeat ourselves, we have the Buddha nature. We have the Buddha nature. And maybe it's not so nice to say something like that, but very often I hear, well, my life practice is just to have some imprint for next life. Is this joyous effort? Is this confidence? Is this hope? Yes, sure, it's important to cultivate imprint for next life. But I think that can also be a way we disguise our own lack of enthusiasm and hope, to say, well, it's just imprint for next life, because this life I don't believe I can. I have the Buddha nature. I hear in the retreat people saying, oh, I do have Buddha nature. Yeah. Next life, I think it's possible. Not this life, impossible. Not this life, no. But the joyous effort that's important for shamatha, this is the joyous effort that say and have confidence, I may not achieve shamatha in this life, but I can train my mind. I can be more at peace. I can I can develop. I have hope. But not the hope that is unpeaceful, because that's an afflictive hope. A hope that brings joy and say, well, I start to make this aspiration more vivid again in my mind, as when we were younger and we were young in the Dharma. We had lots of hope. To be a bit like that, I think that would be very beneficial, to have hope. And the last thing about this aspiration is that with time, we think that aspiration is the result of our success or failure. I have hope because I did many things that were actually going well in the past. But in Buddhist psychology, hope is not so much in the end. It's there in the beginning. It's because you have hope that you do things. It's not because you do things that you have hope. And I think this is a very important nuance in the practice of aspiration and joyous effort, is to have hope, knowing that it's the beginning of us moving toward the goal. It's not because we weight our success and failure and we say, yeah, no, I don't have hope because I don't have aspiration because I failed many times. Well, this is not aspiration. Aspiration is the beginning, as when we were younger and had many hope.
So how do you develop this faith?
Spend time designing how you would like to become and know it's possible. Don't put a time frame to it. I will become Buddha in 3 days. That's a bit unrealistic. But to have this deep conviction that in this lifetime you can be more peaceful, more kind, more, and imagine yourself, what would that be for me to wake up tomorrow and to be more caring and loving and peaceful and serene. And you will see yourself taking many little direction in this day if you really have confidence it's possible. Spend some day and so some time observing what you would like to become. I think that's the best way. This is a practice of self-love. What would I be if I was more caring? I wish I could be more caring. I will do everything that I will be more caring. These are the steps for building love. But we often miss the first step is observing ourselves in the future, having more of these things. So that's one of, I think, point which can prevent us from being insensitive to the Dharma. Oops, sorry. So practically, how can we work on this? I think that's one of the process which we're going through when we meditate, is that we sort between the impossible hope, the afflictive hope, the afflictive aspiration, the craving from the aspiration. And actually, in the mind, these two are sometimes hard to sort. What's the difference in my mind between craving for something and aspiring genuinely in a healthy way for something? Well, the text would say, well, one is unpeaceful. So if you check how much you're peaceful in observing these things in the future, maybe it will tell you if it's afflictive or not. It must exist. What we must wish for must exist. But this, I think, you know. and spend time imagining how would that be if I was more peaceful. And for all the practice, that's what we do. For bodhicitta, what would be the benefit of us being bodhisattvas? There's a whole list of that. It's not meant just for us to read. It's for us to spend time up to the point where we think it's possible. And we do that for shamatha also. Okay, my mind will be effortless. Everything that I will do, because my mind will be both very clear and very stable, it will be very strong. I can realize emptiness in a much better way. I will have less distraction, less afflictive emotion, less stress, less anxiety. Imagine yourself being like that. And the more I practice, the more I say, well, I have to spend a lot of time imagining this. And this really fuels us to go on the cushion and do something, because we are motivating ourselves, because we know it's possible. We practice so much in the West without aspiration and joyous effort. We force ourselves to the cushion. And this is the very first antidote to that. Never go on the cushion if for many days you hate the cushion. Because it's not, the concentration cannot build on this basis. The first power to concentration is conviction in the quality that you can achieve, aspiration to it, aspiration and joyous effort, and this will produce the result that's pliancy, the mind that's being pliant. Okay, so we could become insensitive to the Dharma when we lose hope. And the other factor that I'm going to talk about that's really well developed in the teaching of Pabongkha Rinpoche is mistaken understanding of what is meditation. So I'm going to read a bit more of the text. Okay. To merely review a series of topics in your mind is reflective meditation. This is not what we call cultivating analytical meditation. Neither is it analytical meditation to memorize the words of the teaching and then rehearse their meaning in your mind. Setting forth a single topic as the object to be established and then repeatedly analyzing it with scripture and profound reasoning as the means of generating a sure understanding. For instance, when we reflect again and again on the reason why we think that a particular object is attractive, we develop strong desire. This is analytical meditation toward an object of attachment, and it increases our active desire. Let's shift now to the spiritual domain, where the aim is to increase an experiential awareness of different virtuous mind by repeatedly contemplating the various reasons that will elicit them, as I just described with desire and hatred. If the repeated contemplation of a single argument evokes a sense of ever-growing anguish in your mind, anguish, I'm not sure it's the right translation, but it's for the topic that need to shake us, like impermanence, death, and so forth. This is not for every topic. This is a sign that you are succeeding, so continue striving. But if repeated contemplation of a single argument grows stale and your mind remains unmoved, this means your practice is not succeeding. It's also a forewarning against becoming insensitive to the Dharma. So here, as an antidote to us becoming insensitive to the Dharma, Pabongkha Rinpoche is using analytical meditation. Okay, so now we have to speak of the three wisdom. And that's also a teaching that's a bit not so emphasized, because we think, oh yeah, the three wisdom. Okay, first wisdom, what is it? Wisdom arisen from listening or studying. The other one, reflecting. And the last one, meditating. Okay, that's the three wisdom. I think you probably heard that already. So we hear this teaching and we don't think there's anything practical. Yeah, you have to listen to something, you reflect, and then you meditate on. Not very practical, right? And I think we become insensitive to the Dharma also when we don't understand exactly what is meditation. And meditation, the first problem with meditation is that it's a very, very bad translation. It's a very bad translation. And I'm going to tell you a bit about this word because that's important. Meditation, it comes from Latin meditation. Meditation, I'm not so versed in Latin, but the English is taken from the French. And the French is taken from the Latin. What does it mean? It means basically reflect on something, and I'm going to say reflect something in silence, basically. So in the past, when people would just sit and reflect on something, that would be called meditation. So now, when we're in the Dharma center and we just sit and reflect, we think this is meditation. And unfortunately, I think 99% of the time it's not. It's not meditation. And we're going to see what's meditation. And actually, there's another problem about meditation is that it's coming from a tradition. This word, meditation, that was a way for Christian people to integrate some teachings. And it's called the Lectio Divina. The Lectio Divina is that you would have first the Lectio, you would read something. It's very close to the three wisdom in Buddhism. You would read something, and then you would have meditatio. And the meditatio was actually the wisdom arisen from reflecting. So you see already a problem, is that we mix reflection and meditation. And then you would have oratio. Oratio is like a dialogue you have with God. And the last one would be contemplation. And contemplation was the utmost connection you could have with the divine. You would open yourself to the divine. That's how the word of meditation evolved, at least in Western culture. But now we think that meditation is basically to sit on a cushion and think. Buddhism would say this is reflection. So what is meditation? And the problem is that sometimes you even hear contemplation, you take it for reflection. And you take, so it's totally twisted. You take contemplation to mean reflection, while meditation is the end point in the three wisdom, and reflection and contemplation is often used for reflection. So it's totally changed, and there's nothing we can do apart from adopting a new meaning to the word. So what does it mean to meditate? What does it mean to meditate? Because that's one of the reasons Pabongkha is writing that, is that if we don't understand really well what's meditation, we become insensitive to the Dharma. So what happens if I just take these very nice teachings on the Dharma, listen, reflect on them, and think this is meditation? Okay, I meditate on impermanence, I'm going to die one day, I don't know when, but what's really meaningful for me is just to be open to the other, to be kind. Wow, yeah, that's it. Meditation is finished. That was nice. Very nice. I got like, ooh, little goosebump here. That was nice. Meditation is finished. And because I'm calling it meditation, I think that's it. I cannot go further. This is the end point. I got my little wow. Isn't the little wow supposed to be the end of the process? Well, Buddhism would say, no, it's the beginning. And if we are accustomed to stop on this little wow, we're not giving ourselves a chance to familiarize ourselves deeply with something. So what is meditation? Actually, all the steps that you do up to the wow, this can never be meditation. Even though you're sitting, you put a nice incense, you have nice mat, you put yourself on a holy robe or anything, if you reflect and all the step you go toward this wow, this is not meditation in a Buddhist sense. It's meditation in the Western sense. That's why we still say in our center, we do Wednesday meditation. But if I would start by saying to people who came for 15 years, you never did meditation, they would think I'm crazy. but that's the truth. People at the end of the retreat of Shamatha, they tell me literally that's the first time they understand what's meditation about. So meditation, you have all the steps. You think of something, you just not have, it's not just to hear something, you reflect on it deeply and you get to the wow, to the experience of it. And once you get this experience, that's the start of meditation. So what do you do then? What are you supposed to do? Nico?
I'm not sure, but I think the wisdom of meditation is only when it is based on calm abiding.
Okay.
Like a profound concentration.
Yeah.
Without that deep level of concentration, then it doesn't become meditation. It's still reflection.
Yeah.
And it's analyzing something single-pointedly without being distracted.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where shamatha comes in, basically. Yes. Is that
being familiar with?
Is being familiar, but with a certain state of mind, with a certain quality of mind. So basically, you take something that you reflected on, but this time you observe it with a very stable mind, a mind that has more clarity and more stability. So often when describing these three wisdom, I use, like in the ancient church, you're going to think I'm using a lot of church vocabulary, but you will build vaults. You know vaults? Vaults in stone. So the way to do that in the past is that they would build a wooden frame, and on top of that they would assemble the stone. But they could not remove the framework until all the stone are being set, otherwise it would collapse. So the wisdom arisen from listening is basically you put the framework, you get the word, you get the teaching. Without this teaching, it's very hard for us to understand it on our own. We need the framework. And at the time you put the first stone, this is the wisdom arisen from reflection. You have a taste of it. You start to have a taste of what the teaching was about. You still to have an experience. It's not just what Pabongkha Rinpoche to say, it's not factual. It's not just factually concordant consciousness for those who study Buddhist psychology. It's you have an inference. You understand the topic well. It's valid. It's correct. You have the first stone. It's like you took a lighter and you put the first flame. It's like a click. But you never put a fire on if at the time the first flame is on, you turn the lighter on. This is the beginning of the fire. We have to ignite our mind to have strong experience. That's what Pabongkha Rinpoche is telling us, that the stronger our experience, the less insensitive we become to the Dharma, because we have experience, because when we meditate, it's strong, it's deep, it influences our mind deeply. So the steps are that you hear the teaching, you reflect on this, you get the first stone, and then now you're going to start to focus and do the same kind of reasoning, same kind of thinking. You use your experience. Reasoning doesn't mean just logic. It can be quote from teachers, it can be inspiration from others, it can be anything. But then you do that with a mind that's focused. And you feel like the burning fire is expanding. You don't lose the fire. If you lose the fire, it means you have doubt or you lose the object. And that building of the vault is the process of discerning meditation, what we call analytical meditation, but I don't like also very much this word because it's not just analysis of logic. It can be many things. Your story, your past, your families, anything that can serve you to build the vault. So you take this topic one by one with a mind that's stable, And at one point, you get very familiar with this experience. And you don't have to put words and analysis anymore. And what's happening? You take the framework out. You take the wooden framework out, and the vault is holding on its own. And that's what we call placement meditation. You just are living this experience. But this time, with increasing the power of the clarity of your mind and the stability. And that shakes the mind in a much deeper sense. And that is what brings strong spiritual experience. Of course, you can get strong experience by listening to a charismatic teacher. You can get strong experience by reflecting on something. But Pabongkha Rinpoche was saying there, if you want to not become insensitive, turn your mind into a fabric, a manufacturer, a power plant of strong spiritual experience. And what allows us to do that is the quality of our concentration. It is shamatha that allows us to generate the wisdom that's arisen from meditation. Because with shamatha, you get both a very stable mind that can stay with the topic, and you see it very clearly. That's the two attributes of shamatha, clarity and stability. That's what you get when meditating. So I think that strong understanding of the three wisdom at an experiential level is what can prevent us from becoming insensitive. Because otherwise, what do we get? Yeah, nice inspiration from teachers. When we reflect few minutes, we get some glimpses, some little wow. How can we expect a little wow to overcome habit that was taking place for a long time in our mind? It's almost impossible. Imagine I've been accustomed to anger, jealousy for many years. How could I expect a little glimpse, a spark to just overcome all the habit I took from the past? It's very hard to imagine it's feasible. We have to build something very powerful. And the good news is that we don't have to spend the same time to undo the thing that was done, because otherwise that would take us eons. Why? It doesn't take the same time. Why it can be much quicker? Because the good news is that our mental affliction can never be stable and clear. Because otherwise we could reach shamatha by using anger as an object, or no, we cannot. We cannot be afflicted and peaceful at the same time. So the quality of the laser mind that we create through the practice of shamatha, this can really transform habit that was taking place for eons. And that's what's presented by Pabongkha Rinpoche, who is a great yogi. So he would probably say that to audience, because he would catch also us becoming very expert in the wisdom arisen from listening and reflecting, but unfortunately being unable to meditate. Why? Because we don't train in the practice of shamatha. And we neglect the three wisdom. And we think that by just sitting, it fulfills the definition of meditation. And when we get the wow, we stop. Actually, meditation comes from bhavana, which is becoming. And I think it's much more accurate. You want to become something. Bhavana. It's also becoming. It's in the 12 links of dependent origination. It's the link that's often translated as becoming. Familiarization, becoming, Tibetan Gom, and so sometimes I like to ask, up to where do we go in spiritual transformation? Where do we stop? Do we stop where just we read the book and we say, oh my goodness, this is so making sense. Yeah, this is so nice. Clap off, close the book. And do something else? Do we stop when we get a little wow? That's a profound question for our practice. Where do we stop? Because now imagine your mind could stay on something you understood and have a laser beam consciousness, very stable, and everything you would realize would be so powerfully seen because the equipment of your mind, your mental telescope is extremely sharp and stable. That's what we train for in shamatha. So there's no wisdom arisen from meditation without shamatha, but we can meditate without having achieved shamatha. Whatever level we have in shamatha meditation is going to help us to bring all those topics into the sphere of experience. So I think we have a bit of time for question. Would you like? Is there some question online? Yes. Am I at peace? Oh, there's a lot of improvement to do. I'm more at peace, yeah, but there's still a long way to go. Yeah.
I haven't found peace at all, not an atom's worth of it.
Yeah.
So many workshops, so much effort gone. It's just been such an exercise in waste and futility. It's just that constant sense of rush and anxiety, and I think I'll never be at peace. I'll never find peace, and I'm being very honest.
But you said you're rushing all the time?
Yeah, I am. So my mind is always so preoccupied. What's the point?
Yeah.
So much effort I've spent. Ask Nico. I sit here all the time, hoping I'll get somewhere eventually. I've attained nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So to remind ourselves that shamatha is actually embedded in a package. The wisdom arisen from meditation is made possible by what we call self-ethical discipline. It's one of the higher training. What does it mean for us? It's a lifestyle. It's what we do of our days. I often say to people, if you meditate 20 minutes, while you entertain your mind being very scattered by your body and speech all day, it's not going to take you very far. It's like you're a concertist, like you're a professional pianist. You do like huge concert, and you spend your day doing to break the walls. Do you think at the end of the day you can play Rachmaninoff or Franz Liszt? No, it's unlikely. Meditation is the result of a lifestyle also. And that's our task probably to reflect on it and say, well, is my lifestyle conducive for meditation, self-development? And that's what I keep myself asking all the time. Is it good? Is it conducive? No. And if it's not, then we can accept that it's not, in a sense, not build another layer of aversion to already all types of aversion we have. Say, this is what I have. Don't be offended. Don't blame yourself. If it's coming from your environment, there's nothing personal. It's not about you. It's probably your environment. Shifting an environment can help also, or trying to slowly orient your environment to go in a certain way also, to work with your environment. If meditation doesn't work, I'm actually teaching meditation, and quite often people cannot meditate. And I tell them, first, don't believe that meditation equal practice. This is not true. There's many practices we can do that are not meditation. And on top of that, if we think meditation is just being sitting on a cushion and think, we're not even meditating. So, and also, don't blame yourself if you cannot meditate. It's probably because the environment doesn't allow it. Your internal environment, your mental factors, your emotions, but also your external environment. Don't take it personally. that can already bring a bit of space for you to maybe meditate a bit. I think the Buddha, imagine that. Buddha, 2,500 years ago, told people to go in caves to retreat. Do you think the life was really busy there with Instagram and Facebook and telephones and internet? And do you think it was really needed? Yes, it was needed even at the time where I think in ancient India it was quite peaceful for those who had chosen to leave the domestic life. Imagine for us now, with the work we have to do, the pressure, we're never stopping. We really have to consider, is our environment conducive to mental development? I actually did a talk with psychologists in France on hyperactivity. And I'm really questioning, is our modern world really conducive for meditation? I think we really have to set ourselves a very conducive environment, and I think we're really far from it. And it's not a chance if many of the young who spend so much time fragmented on social media are so low in aspiration, so high in anxiety, and so bad at meditation.
Yes.
It's environment. We really made ourselves a very bad environment for meditation. Someone else? Oh, is there ask to unmute? Ask to unmute. What does it mean? I have to ask to unmute? Isar? It's written on your screen, ask to unmute? Okay, ask to unmute. So I push the button, I don't know what's gonna happen.
François, can you hear me?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Minoti.
Yeah. François, could you speak a little bit more about becoming?
Okay, so the three wisdom. First, you hear the words. Okay. You don't get the experience. On the wisdom arisen from listening, you just get the words. It's the framework on which you're going to build the vault of understanding and experience. When you develop the wisdom arisen from reflection, you get the words and the meaning. And the meaning is the actual start of experience. You start to have an experience. You start to have a wow. Wow. Wow, I could die tomorrow. I could die anytime now. Wow. Before it was just words that I was telling myself, but now with understanding and a mind that's being more peaceful. Wow, 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 wow. That's an experience. But now, this experience is not long-lasting. We have to meditate on that. So here, you take what you learn from shamatha, which mean mindfulness and vigilance and all the other tools, and you keep investigating, but with a mind that's becoming more clear and more stable. So the experience is starting to explode inside, but in a very nice, conducive way. And you spend time on that again and again. And because you spend time, it becomes your new habit. And if it becomes your new habit, you become that thing. And at one point, it's like a mom being loving and caring for her child without having to say the words anymore. This is what placement meditation is. You remove the framework of the words and you just are loving and compassionate. And you focus on that experience. You focus on that experience that is not analysis anymore, because analysis starts to be a problem because it doesn't get you as deep, at least at this stage, as analytical meditation, but you just are you become loving and compassionate. Imagine that. Imagine it would make no difference between you actually imagining that in front of you were all the beings and you generating extremely profound warm feeling for them, and them actually being in front of you and you actually doing something for them. When your mind has been trained in shamatha, it makes almost no difference. So imagine this experience that you live. Imagine the strength, the power of it to shift your experience. It's a life-changing experience, I would say. And that's what Pabongkha Rinpoche is encouraging us to develop. He say, yeah, don't stop in just reflection. Don't just stop in reviewing the topic together. Bring shamatha to your own process of understanding and developing wisdom. That's what's called analytical meditation. And analytical meditation is made possible by how much you're proficient in shamatha. It's how much you're proficient in wisdom, how much you can understand. That's the part that's related to wisdom and understanding, but how much you can hold that knowledge into your experience. That's coming from shamatha. And when you have wisdom from one side and concentration, you build an experience that can be very powerful in the mind. To turn that to be experiences that are very profound, long-lasting. And that's what we wish for ourselves. And that's what I wish you, all of you, to have this experience. Let's not think that we're just doing this for planting imprint for next life. Let's hope that all you guys can have strong spiritual experience in this life. I actually received an email once from the director of Center for Contemplative Research that was asking me if I would come to the United States to do a long shamatha retreat. And she said to the message, would you like to come with the commitment to enter the path in this life? And I thought, wow, man, that's very ambitious, right? But I was thinking, if she has hope for herself that one day she might enter the path in this life, imagine how she behaves on a daily basis. I can do it. I can do it. Strong pride. Pride, it's everywhere in Buddhism. Pride, it's in Tantra, definitely, very strong. Pride, it's in joyous effort. Other cannot do it, I will do it myself. Pride. I may be able to enter the path. I may be surprised by how much I'm going to develop soon. And to have the hope it's possible, imagine how that feel in the morning, that you feel, wow, maybe I can enter the path in this life. And maybe you can enter the path in this life. Why not? So on these words, I'm going to finish. Yes?
When we are with a realized being, when we are with a realized being, do you think this state can be infected, or this can be injected in you temporarily? At least you taste it.
Okay, so sometimes you hear of blessings, right? What is a blessing? A blessing, it's actually an increasing of your power through the help of someone else. I think in the past, blessing used to be adhisthana. I think it's in Sanskrit. Adhisthana is you get close to, you have like a teaching, and the closer you get to the teacher, it means the higher you are in the ranking. So adhisthana was basically you change a place to go closer to the teacher. So it's a kind of empowerment. So blessing is not a substance that comes from the teacher. It's by you getting to hear something, there's a power that's moving into you. That is the blessing. So the teacher cannot give you anything else than the correct words and to inspire you. But inspiration doesn't mean he gives you something. Well, he's doing something. But the actual blessing that you get is that you get a surge in power inside. It's an empowerment. But I think the wisdom, the teaching on the three wisdom is really to tell ourselves that we are really responsible. This is our task here. All right, I think we are. So let's just now finish with dedication and take just 1 minute to plant this small seed of imagining ourselves in the future being totally at peace. How would that be? And while we try to produce this aspiration, we may be very well aware of this voice that's going to interrupt us, saying, yeah, how dare you do that, François, you selfish. That's not a voice that's coming from a very healthy mind. So let's wish ourselves that we may, in this life, becoming more compassionate and loving. And let's, I may not say taking the commitment, but aspire for us in the future to spend more time imagining how we would like to become so that it fuels our joyous effort. It speeds up our spiritual progress. And with strong joy, we become calm. And when we calm, the mind gets concentrated. And the mind, when it's concentrated, gets knowledge. And may we use this knowledge for the benefit of every being, everywhere. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. This was very insightful, and experientially, I think we've all been enriched. So, but yes, it will inspire us to have our regular practice. Very challenging, but we are going to try our level best. So, thank you very much once again, and
Thank
please
you very much.
accept us.
Thank you.
And come again to the center whenever it's possible.
Wonderfully. Yeah, I will do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nico.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do it.
Thank you. Thanks, François. Thanks,
Thank you,
Nico.
Sarah.
Thank you, François. Happy journey further.
Yes, thank you very much, Minote.
Thank you.